Big with Steve Bartilla. Brought to you by
I spend approximately 50% of each season hunting pristinely managed ground. I know how well it's managed because I manage it myself. Now, these are truly deer utopias. And when you're hunting those type of things, I'm telling you, it's really, 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 really easy to look really smart. And like you're a really, really good hunter, because when these whitetails do not feel pressure, when there's not just one 4.5 plus buck, or heck, this is a spot I hunt right here, public ground. I'm lucky if there's one 3.5-year-old buck on this property. Okay. When I'm hunting these managed properties, it's not one 3.5-year-old buck, it's how many 4.5-year-old plus bucks do I have to hunt and which ones do I want to? Now, I'm not trying to tell anybody what you should shoot for age. That's up to each of us. I think that type of stuff is just silly. But what I am telling you is you are 100% right. When you're sitting there at home, well, if I hunted a place like that, I'd be doing every bit as good as they. You darn right you would be. You know, as a matter of fact, a whole bunch of you'd be doing better than a lot of us, because a lot of us really aren't that good hunters. I worked for years as a consultant for outfitters. When you have someone that is finding that stand, walking you to the stand, showing you pictures of the deer that you can shoot. Here are the deer you can expect to see. This is the one I'd hold out for if I were you. It's easier. When it comes to public ground, it is a completely different animal. Right out of the gate, forget about everything that you've been taught on television and in books and in magazines. The overwhelming majority of it will not work on public ground. Use this. This is by far your best weapon. Ask yourself, if I'm a mature buck, how am I going to survive out here? How does a buck get to be mature on heavily pressured ground? They get to be mature by living, I mean daylight core areas, in the areas that we don't go. That's number one. The first thing I'm focusing on is finding those locations where no one else is going on those pressured grounds. Focus on finding those locations where Mr. Big is actually living. And if he's living in a situation like this, a setting like this, one of two things is going on. Either he's dang lucky or he has found a spot where other people aren't going. Try to find those spots. Those nasty, nasty regrowths for clear cuts. You get to the backside of them, they're oftentimes 100% to yourself. A swamp, if you have to take out a canoe, pair of waders or hip boots, a ridge that you have to bust like this or a gully like that, look for things that go ahead and stop others from crossing. You go to those areas and then do virtually nothing to draw attention to yourself whatsoever. Not all public ground are going to have scenarios like that. When there aren't spots where these deer can go, which there's way more than a person realizes, but when there's not spots for these whitetails to go to avoid us, then what you do on the public ground, then what you do is you try to figure out where are they escaping to, and you set up on those escape routes. Then I'm doing absolutely nothing to draw attention to myself whatsoever. When a deer's coming through too fast to shoot, I don't even want to go bah, to try to stop them. We can go ahead and train deer to fear virtually anything, except virtually anything, just like our dog at home. How? Through positive and negative reinforcements. If that deer has heard bah out here before, it's not good. It's because somebody's trying to kill him. What I'll do is, if I have to cross one of my shooting lanes to get to the stand, I'll just take a little scent and dribble it right there on the ground. I'm not trying to attract anything. I'm just trying to make it so as that deer is walking through, stops, puts its head down, sniff, I've got my shot opportunity. I don't have to sit there and go, bah, and watch him run the other way. Okay, calling and rattling. I'm not going to call and rattle unless I believe there's no chance that buck I'm watching right there, that there's no chance he's going to go ahead and swing around and come back in. Then I'll give him a grunt, maybe a doe call, maybe a snort wheeze. That's about it. You know, very, very low key. These deer, they've been through the war zones. Even a fawn isn't as dumb as the deer that I'm hunting on the utopias. Okay, really use your head.
Final thoughts, brought to you by Huntworth.
Hunting pressured whitetails is completely different than hunting utopias. What you're watching on TV, 99 out of 100 times are people hunting utopia. That's not reality for you if you're hunting places like this. Pressured deer, what I do is I try to find the areas that other people aren't going, and then I do nothing to draw attention to myself whatsoever. I'll go ahead and make a mock scrape. Won't necessarily even use scent. I'm not afraid to use scent at all, but I'll go ahead and put licking branches in the shooting lanes so that they naturally stop. If I'm crossing a shooting lane on the way in, I obviously try not to, but I'll dribble a little scent there. I do nothing to draw attention to myself. If I cannot find a pocket that the whitetails can be left alone on that pressured ground, what I do is I try to find their escape routes to where they can find those locations. Use your head. This is our greatest weapon. These whitetails are heavily pressured. We must alter our tactics accordingly.